Hello and welcome to Accounting, the Hub of Convenience. My name is Monique Horn. I am a CPA who has worked in the convenience store and retail petroleum industry for over 30 years. I'm currently working as a partner with the Business Accelerator team. Business Accelerator team is a consultancy and marketing agency serving the convenience store and retail petroleum industry. Accounting really is the hub of the convenience store industry and the company itself. And today I want to talk about some of the reasons why that is and how we should view it as we go forward. The accounting department provides the foundation for all of the other different departments in the industry, in the company. Marketing, operations, the store, fuel procurement, the executive team, information technology, and human resources. They really provide information for all of those departments, and although they're not a profit center, they provide support to everyone else in the organization. The accounting department plays a dual role within the organization, and this is when we need to think about whether you need a CPA or a CMA on board the organization, or either in some cases if your organization isn't large enough to support that. Most people understand what a CPA is, and they are trained to look at the organization in a historical perspective, putting together income statements, financial statements, balance sheets that are structured for external stakeholders, most importantly lenders and probably government agencies. The CMA is a certified management accountant, and while they have some of the same training as a CPA, their focus is more on the organization itself and looking at how different cost centers, profit centers, and departments work within the organization and work together. They're focused more on what's happening currently within the organization, reporting that to the various department heads and creating actionable data for the organization. Some of the traditional items that the accounting department handles, and you're all familiar with, the investor and lender relations when you're working with outside stakeholders, GAAP, which is generally accepted accounting principles, and compliance with that, it lends credibility to your income statements, even if you're not a publicly traded corporation. Cash management is obviously an important role and something that's obvious. You focus on working capital and on the need for future expansion. Government compliance and risk management are also traditional roles of the accounting department. It's something that everyone thinks about when they're staffing that role. A truly integrated accounting department requires a different type of person and a different type of mindset within the corporation. The primary role of the accounting department should be providing support and feedback for each of the departments. The operations department relies heavily on daily reporting, hourly, daily, weekly, monthly, so that they can respond to the needs of the store level personnel, as well as corporate office, be it marketing or IT or human resources for that matter. Risk avoidance is primary concern for the operations department. That's where the rubber meets the road, so to speak, and they don't have time to go through looking at traditional accounting reports in order to comply with that role. The marketing department is another one that interacts heavily with accounting, basically in the form of Pricebook. Pricebook and accounting are very interrelated, and Pricebook is where the marketing department needs most of its support. If any deal that the marketing department might negotiate with a vendor has to be put into the Pricebook so that accounting, and done correctly, so that accounting can see what's being done and make sure that the plan is executed as they thought it was going to be. Store level personnel normally see the accounting department as a headache. We are the ones, and I say we because my background is in accounting and a CPA, are traditionally the ones that are setting the policies and sending out the forms and the tasks that a store level person, a sales associate needs to complete on a daily basis. They don't see the value that it brings to the corporation. The accounting department needs to understand that and think twice before they put certain policies and procedures in place, making sure that they're going to get enough benefit from that particular policy. Is there an easier way to do it? And do we really need to put the stress on our store level personnel in order to get that information? Human resources as well has a lot of overlap with accounting, and rather than seeing it as a again, necessary evil, they need to be looked at as a partner. There's a lot of overlap in payroll and tax compliance, insurance compliance, government regulations, and even labor planning and risk management from the human resource side. Human resources is kind of a right brain, left brain department. You need to do a lot of creative thinking. You're dealing with individuals. And at the same time, you need to follow a lot of policies and procedures, which is typically the strength of the accounting department. The fuel department relies on accounting for fuel tax reporting and inventory control. Normally, the accounting department is the first one to see a potential problem or a potential error. And if you have the right people in place, they'll know how to take that information and either determine if it's a bad number or if there's truly an issue out at the store level that needs to be taken care of. There's hedging sometimes involved in fuel, and when you have fleet customers in-house and fleet sales, you need to be able to handle those requests from outside customers as well, be it doing it in-house or if it's outsourced to a third party, you're still normally the liaison between the two and have to work on those skills as well within that department. Finally, the executive team. The executive team at a high level has to see the organization differently than outside stakeholders see it, but needs to understand what the outside stakeholders want to see. So they, more than anyone, are trying to digest an incredible amount of data in an incredibly short time period. And they really just need, the accounting department needs to create kind of the executive summary of the financial statements. Yes, you need to create something that's in accordance with GAAP and follows the rules, so to speak, or the covenants that are put in place by outside lenders and stakeholders. But at the same time, you want to make sure that the C-suite, if you will, is seeing the numbers that they need to see and can make good business decisions based on the data that you're providing to them. Most accounting departments spend too much time focusing on getting the numbers to look pretty, getting the numbers right, to getting the numbers to follow some sort of format, when in essence what they need to do is put it into a format that the other department heads can use to make a better decision. Cost control, efficiency opportunities can be pointed out to either department heads or the C-suite. And finally, the focus on risk management and succession planning at that level too requires accounting involvement. So you can see that the department really is and provides a foundation for every other department. And you need to think about that when you are investing in either staff and or software. One way to get to accomplish this when you're working on building your in-house team is outsourcing. Some of the more traditional accounting functions are perfect candidates for outsourcing so that you can focus on acquiring talent in-house that has some of the characteristics, more of the characteristics that I spoke about earlier, rather than looking for that CPA when you're hiring or that bookkeeper type person. You can find someone who's number savvy, but still understands the impact and the role of the department on the rest of the corporation and is comfortable in that role. We're not the stars. The accounting department doesn't get the recognition, but we're kind of the team behind the team and providing support to everyone else. Some obvious areas for outsourcing our payroll, and I think organizations of all sizes benefit greatly for that, namely due to the potential cost of non-compliance. If we miss a deadline or miss filing certain reports, the penalties and fines can be extremely high in that area and can impact the business, obviously. Another thing to think about is what kind of in-house talent do you have? If there's really only one person in the organization who understands the taxes or the compliance type issues or the reporting that is required, that's a risk management issue, frankly. And that would be another perfect area to outsource so that you have some backup in that area. Now I'd like to invite our panelists to join us. I have Crystal Rademacher, the Retail Accounting Supervisor for Quality Dairy, and Gerard Buick, who is Director of Operations for Graham C-Stores. And they're going to speak to some of the things that I have touched upon here today and put it into the real world for you. Apologize for the delay there. Welcome, Crystal and Gerard. It's good to see you today.
Nice to see you too.
Good morning.
Crystal, why don't you talk a little bit about your role at Quality Dairy? Because I think, as we had talked earlier, you are really the epitome of what I've been talking about today, and the entire reason for your position or some of the things that I was touching upon.
Yeah, so I've been with Quality Dairy for about 15 years. I spent 13 of those years down at retail level. I managed a location for 12 of those years. And really how I ended up involved in the corporate side of things is that we took on a new retail accounting system. And I was kind of designated as using it first and then trying to determine what processes or procedures the stores would need to execute. And with that process, one thing kind of led to another, and I did end up moving from my position at store level up to the corporate office. And I started with our price book. We had a new integration with our price book with the auditing system, and we needed to be able to review that price book, determine how it was interacting with our auditing system, and get it to function correctly, report the way we expected it to, and really analyze how that price book was functioning and get it to share information the way we needed to share it, and manage the inventory the way we needed to manage it. And after that, I started managing our auditing team as well. So the way I like to think of it is I kind of deal with the price book, and I consider that like the beginning of the story. And then I also deal with that information on the backside. After everything goes through our registers, after everything sells, I also deal with that information on the backside. So with those two things, I've spent the past couple of years analyzing the capabilities of our software and trying to optimize what it reports to us, make it as efficient as possible. And the good news with all of that is that I understand what the stores are doing at store level. So when we implement new products or anything like that, I understand the process of inventory control, the process of what the store is dealing with the customer, so we can make sure that we streamline what the customer's experience is at the register. And in that, I obviously have a lot of heavy communication with our marketing department. Our price book is just a management of the data and the determinations that marketing makes. So we take that information and we determine what's the best way to put it into that price book for inventory control purposes, customer service experience, and ease of operation for it to flow into our auditing system. So I've heavily become a bridge between operations and marketing and upper management reporting. And
I can interrupt you, Crystal. What I like most about is that you have that accounting background, which is what traditionally retailers look for, someone in that department with the whole bookkeeping and accounting background. You don't have that background, right? And you act as a translator between the two.
Yeah, and to a certain extent, I almost think it helps me it's obviously very good to have people with accounting experience. That's an absolute necessity to a certain extent with operations that I don't necessarily interact with. But what I can do is help them understand how these things occur at the store, how it interacts with the inventory controls, so I can think of it as more of like a physical process, and while they think of it more as an equation sort of thing. So it kind of almost puts some humanity into those numbers, some realism into those numbers, and also a lot of times marketing is really focusing on selling to the customer, which is great, but a lot of times they're just not geared to think about what do those sales or those promotions or those buy downs mean for inventory controls. So they're not really equipped to send the message to the store of how to operate that once it's in action either. So I interact a lot with marketing in those factors. They'll send information over to me, and a lot of times I flow a lot of questions back to them to try to figure out some of the details that they might not think of, so they're thinking of that marketing part, and I kind of plug in those small other details when it comes into the operations part of it. So I also, anytime they do something, I take a look at it and say, okay, operations is going to have to have a new write-off sheet to account for any loss or waste for these products, and so forth. So it's a lot of back and forth. And when I was asked to come on board with this position, that was really their goal, was to bring some retail level knowledge into the accounting department to help kind of translate, so to speak. Yeah.
And speaking of operations, Gerard and I have actually worked together in the past, and so I know that he understands the value of the accounting department. And so why don't you share some of the details of how accounting provides support for you and what you expect from that department and what they do for you?
Yeah, the accounting department for operations is very, very important. We look at trends for the company, for a district, and for a store. One of the things that we really look at is getting timely information. The faster we get the information, the better off we are, the faster we can fix it. I know that what Crystal is doing sounds a lot like operations. I mean, that's what I do, a lot of communication with other departments, not just the accounting department, but the marketing department, and really getting them to see the communication down to the store level of how that affects each cashier, each store, each district. And that open communication and knowing what the end game is can play a huge part. So any operation experience that an accounting department has really makes a big difference. You can definitely tell if you're working with somebody that has retail background or not.
Yeah, and it's definitely beneficial. And what I try to get across is when I'm consulting, especially, is that if we do these things, if the accounting department does these things throughout the month, throughout the year, providing the information and good data for all of the other departments, the things that give them a headache, give the accounting department headaches, creating financial statements for outside stakeholders, really just fall into place after that. It's the benefit of investing in the right people and the right software and even the right third-party vendors at the beginning really makes everything else easier. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, most definitely. The integration of the software, the back office, and how things work really is a time saver. I think a lot of times people lose track of how long that takes on an operation side and what could be lost in wages if they've got to try and make things work, or they take a little bit longer to get the numbers into a different system where they're not automated, which is a lot of labor from the store level that way, and productivity.
Right, and it's really the department job, and Crystal, you probably understand this as well, to kind of scrub the data first, just give you the numbers that you need to see. Creating a big long report, that you're really proud of really doesn't do anything. You just the numbers that are important, exception reporting, if you will.
Right. Well, and our auditing system offers a lot of reporting that's pre-existing. It's part of the software. But a lot of times it doesn't always report the way we want to see information. So it's also a matter of kind of taking all of that information, combining it so that the information relates to the question being asked or the information needed. So you really got to be able to figure out what pieces of that puzzle need to go together to paint the picture.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, I thank you both for joining me. Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, it's okay. I think just on what Crystal was saying, there's some reports that can come out faster with higher level information on it, not a whole lot of detail.
Right.
You know, end of the month, the end of the quarter, when they're finalized, we definitely need that information as well. But if we can get bi-weekly or even, you know, halfway through the month, we get solid numbers that are at a higher level, it makes it a lot easier for us to change trends and make changes operationally.
Exactly. And I'm going to share my screen again because I wanted to kind of wrap things up with the key takeaways for today that both of you have touched on, and kind of put out there for everyone that when you're either starting a company or getting into an expansion mode, when you've maybe acquired a lot of stores or ready to take everything to the next level, don't overlook the importance of investing in good accounting staff. You don't necessarily need a CPA. You don't even necessarily need someone with accounting experience, but you need to invest in good software and good people that can provide that foundation for the rest of the organization. And if you would like any more information, keep in touch. Feel free to reach out to me or the Business Accelerator team, and we would be happy to help or share additional information. I'd like to thank my panelists for joining me today, Crystal Rademacher from Quality Dairy Company and Gerard Buick with Graham Enterprises. Thank you for providing your insights and sharing those with our audience. If anyone has any questions or would like some follow-up information, my contact information is on the slide you see here, and I'd be happy to help. Reach out to me anytime you'd like. Have a great day.